Okay, after we have gone through and determined the look that we're going to try and achieve, right? We've looked at those 5 key areas. We've decided this is the way we want to go with the framing. This is the way we want to go with the composition. This is the way we want to go with the lighting. All of those things in our minds, we're starting to create this image. We're starting to get the idea of what this thing is going to look like. That is done. Now that we have a vague idea, no matter how vague it is, it doesn't matter. As long as we have some sort of idea of how we're going to approach this thing, then we can get into the next step, which is deciding just a very rough outline in your head. Again, you don't have to sit down and do this every single job, because once you do it 10, 20 times, you're basically going to know what you need, right? We're just walking through it for your purposes here to see how the mental path to get to the tech scout works, right? So the next thing is going to be, well, what do I need to achieve the look I just decided on, right? We know the Fincher style, sort of true detective look where it's desaturated, played down in the shadows, a little bit of harshness in the lighting, a little bit of harshness in the wides, and we're going to soften it up as we go in. It's going to be anamorphic. It's going to be very shallow depth of field when we get in there. What are the elements that we need to produce those results? And again, it's not like we're not going through and itemizing, we need this and this and this. It's just a big picture idea, so that when we get to the tech scout and we're talking to the team, if they're missing something, or if they think about a different way of solving a problem, we can say, well, that might work to solve this one problem, but we have 4 of these shots on the day, and for the other 3 shots, having a 12 by 20 is better than having just a 12 by 12 or whatever it is, right? You want the solutions before you ask the questions. And if someone does answer a question with a better solution, well, then you're able to articulate, well, that's actually better. It helps us here, here, and here. So let's go with that idea, right? You are now thinking about managing a team of highly skilled individuals that bring their own unique set of skills to the project. And we want to take advantage of all of their knowledge. So we're going to leave the door as wide open for them to make us look good, right? That's the whole idea here. So let's walk through. We'll just look at the agency boards again, looking for major red flags and then identifying equipment. Here we know we're going to want the sun here. This is going to be our hardest shot. It's the widest, coupled with the last shot of the commercial, which is the sort of resolution of the ad, which is also a wide. We're going to want the sun behind. And we know if our road is facing east to west, that we are going to want to be facing, in this situation, we're going to be facing east. So this is probably going to be first shot of the day. Sun gets out of the frame. We don't want the sun in the frame for this shot. So that eliminates us having like a 6:30 a.m. start to want to be rolling when the sun is down here. We're not going for magic hour. We could try. Problem with going for magic hour in a setup like this is we have 8 shots to get through, 7 shots to get through by the end of it. We're canceling a few of these interior car shots. Andre said nope. He wants to play everything outside of the car. So we are not going to have those interior shots, which makes things a lot easier for us in time and equipment. So if we go now to this wide, again, sun up here, out of the frame. So we'll remember that when we talk to the first AD about scheduling. We want little tiny edges on the car, on the hood maybe there's a little something, but really it's edges on the 2 people that are going to be standing out of the car, because there's going to be another person over here, right? But for our purposes, sun out of the sky. Now, what else are we going to do? Well, that's really probably it if we end up this wide. But knowing that we might not end up this wide, we might end up on a longer focal length further away. We don't know. Still, we haven't been there with the whole team. We haven't decided on the lenses. We haven't been there with Andre and sat through, well, this is the feel that we're going for. This is the way that we're going to play this. Just in my mind, I would say we're going to need as much neg as the production can get us, because I'm going to want to run it all along here and all along behind the camera, because I want as much shadow. I don't want any sky coming back in here and bouncing it up, because it's going to flatten off our image. We're so wide that we're going to need as much neg basically as production can order, however much can fit in the grip truck. That's how much neg we're going to want. Then I know that maybe we end up on a 135, right? And we can really compress this space so we can get the bounces close enough. Well, I know it's either going to be ultra bounce, like a 12 by 20, or 2 12 by 12s if those are easier to move depending on crew numbers, or just one single 12 by 12 if that's all you have, or if that's all you can do with the crew and with the sandbags or the shot bags that you have. Maybe you don't have enough and it's going to be windy, whatever it is. I know I'm going to want to bounce this direction. So I'm going to know, okay, at a minimum, I need a 12 by 12 of ultra or of unbleached muslin, something like that. Probably unbleached muslin in the desert, just to give it a little tiny bit of that warmth. So for this shot, easy, neg and 12 by 12 of some sort of bounce. The other thing here, thinking about camera movement, is really, it's all David Finchery, which is just like that very static camera. Camera doesn't move except for a very specific purpose. But even though the camera isn't moving, even though it's going to be static, I would never suggest just saying, oh, yeah, we can put it on head and legs, just on a tripod. It's like that is so inefficient for time. And this is a great example of explaining to production why spending money is going to save them money. Because you figure, oh, we can just put it on head and legs. Like there's no dolly moves in here. Why do we possibly need a dolly? Well, it's those last little 1%, 2% moves that you're trying to increase the amount of production value you're getting out of a shot. Happens right at the last second where you're sitting there lined up, and if you're on head and legs and you're like, man, it would be great if we were 2 inches that way and then just, 2 inches down. Well, to do that ends up taking 3 minutes because the grips have got to come over, they got to lift the thing up, they got to readjust, rebubble, and then you get over there and you're like, well, it's not actually as good. And then you got to go back to where you were, and it takes the other 2 minutes to do it. Well, if you've got 8 shots for the day and you know you're going to be doing that, sort of 3 times every single shot in an ideal world, in a real world, if you have head and legs, you do it on the first shot and then you realize, well, we just chewed up 10 minutes and we're not going to be able to do that every single shot. So every single shot from here on out gets worse because we're not able to experiment. So I would say definitely dolly, always on the dolly, right? We just want to wheel this thing around and have complete freedom. You can use, the pneumatic up and down to go really, really quickly. You can put a little slider on there. I would also say every time you get a dolly on a shot where it's going to be static, every time you get a dolly, also get a little 3-foot slider on there, because just that 6 inches to the left and 6 inches to the right, where you don't need anyone else to do those tricks, to do those setups on the day, you can just unlock the head, slide over the dolly, lock it off, and you don't have to call the whole crew over to help move things. The more efficient you can be with moving the camera, tiny, tiny increments, the better you're going to be. So I would say, of course, everything here is going to be on the dolly, right? And that's going to cost money, and you're probably going to get questions. Why is it on the dolly when there's no dolly moves? And you lead with, well, I'm trying to save you money, right? There's 30 people standing around for 10 minutes every single shot. There's 8 shots, that's 80 minutes, 30 people standing around doing nothing. Or you could rent the dolly for $500 a day, right? You decide. Because I'm happy to have them move it all around. It's just going to eat up time. And in a commercial where we're shooting exteriors and we're dependent on the sun, the lighting could get very expensive if we don't take advantage of what the sun is giving us. So that's how you sort of just find a way to make it easier on productions to spend money early by having those ideas already in place. Like, this is why we need this piece of gear, because it's actually going to save you money. I'm helping. I'm not, just spending money for nothing. Okay, here, I know in this situation, we're probably going to go, depending on the angle of the sun, we're going to have some sort of overhead rig. And I know, judging by the size of this shot, we're probably never going to go wider than this, but always good to give yourself a few feet either side. So I would just say, for safety's sake, a 12 by overhead is going to do it. Something like a highlight or a half soft frost, something where you still get the bite in the sun, like in the direct sun up here. You still get the bite of the sun. So it's not too soft like a quarter grid, and there's enough level coming through, but it's just softened off enough. Then I know underneath we're gonna bounce some level this way. So we'll use the same bounce that we used here. And then I know we're gonna neg. And then we're probably going to have like a little mirror bounce over here, or a 4x piece of diffusion for a 4x bounce for our backlight over here, our little edge if we need a little bit extra. So again, that's easy. 12 by overhead, bounce that we already talked about, neg that we already talked about, probably smaller neg. So like 2 4x floppies, because those are easier to maneuver on a shot of this size. You don't need 24 feet of neg for something like this. You can get away with probably just 2 floppies in the end. And then, yeah, that bounce back there. Okay, so very basic gear list I'm running through my head. Here, nothing that we haven't already described. These are the same shots as before. There's nothing else that isn't in this very first close-up. So we're still at a really basic gear list. Same shot here. We're not doing in-the-car stuff. That's been canceled because it takes too much time. And then we're back out to our wides, right? So very, very simple kit list that I would put together just in my own mind, in my own head, to say, okay, if we get out there and I don't hear anybody mention the 2 12x12s of Ultra Bounce or 2 12x12s of bleached muslin or unbleached muslin, I know that we're in trouble. So I'm reminding myself to say something. When we get in these situations, this is the kind of stuff that I'm thinking. And then if someone has a better idea, please let me know.